I encountered bullying. I was mercilessly pushed down the stairs. At that moment, I fell into an unrecognizable heap of broken flesh. However, unbelievably, the next day I appeared at school completely unscathed, attending classes as usual. I thought I had returned with a mission of revenge, but unexpectedly, I had become the target of a malevolent spirit. And what awaited me next? The story begins. I fell from the school rooftop, landing on the steps at the main entrance of the teaching building. My neck hit the ground, and I rolled down the steps, my spine shattered, my body twisted grotesquely. I felt many eyes watching me. In the blood-soaked vision, an angel in white and a demon in red appeared simultaneously. The red-clad demon, holding an umbrella, reached out to me and said, "Hate, and choose me for revenge." The angel also extended a hand, saying, "Give me your soul, only I can help you." I struggled to move my body and chose the smiling angel. The overlapping shadows gradually merged into one. The blood that had flowed out began to return. Bones cracked and reassembled. My shattered body slowly healed. The red figure of the demon gradually disappeared from my sight, and I seemed to see a trace of pity in its eyes. The angel took control of my body, spreading its arms to embrace the sun. Under the sunlight, everything seemed to be restored, but the marks left by the bullies remained. Burns from cigarette butts, stabs from mechanical pencils, pinches, and various bruises were still clearly visible. Suddenly, I felt a sense of joy. Hearing myself murmur, "All of this will be returned to the bullies, bit by bit." It was simply marvelous. At that moment, I vaguely saw the demon with the umbrella again. He was quietly watching me from a distance. A voice in my head kept asking, "Who pushed me off the rooftop?" I had been bullied for so long that anyone could be the culprit. I needed to find this person and drag them to hell. The next day, I returned to the school that filled me with despair. Surprisingly, I didn't feel afraid at all. As expected, my desk drawer was mysteriously filled with trash, fruit peels, and cockroach corpses. Everyone in the class was snickering, oblivious to the fact that they had caused me to fall from the rooftop the day before. If it weren't for that angel, I would still be a heap of broken flesh. I smiled at everyone and suddenly grabbed a handful of the trash, stuffing it into my mouth and chewing. I licked my lips and said, "Thanks for the treat." As soon as I finished speaking, a few boys in the class suddenly clutched their stomachs and vomited live cockroaches all over the floor. At lunchtime in the cafeteria, it was almost the same as usual. I was tripped while walking. My food was cut in line, and three arrogant girls took turns spitting into my meal. They pressed my head into the food, laughing as they returned to their seats to eat. They didn't notice that their own meals had turned into a feast for flies, with insects buzzing around freely. They ate heartily until one of them had maggots crawling out of her ears and nose, which was noticed by another. Only then did the three realize something was wrong with their food. They screamed in terror, flipping over their remaining meals. But upon closer inspection, there was no trace of the insects, just a hallucination. Many people cast strange looks at them, and the teacher was drawn over by the commotion, loudly scolding the three girls for causing chaos. After the teacher left, they were furious and didn't know where to vent their anger, so they focused on me. One grabbed my collar, and another poured the food from the table over my head. Their ugly faces filled me with both disgust and amusement. Suddenly, one of them started scratching herself uncontrollably, and her body was instantly covered in insects. I licked the rice grains off my lips and kept smiling. "Wasting food will bring divine retribution," I said. I felt an inexplicable joy and laughed heartily. Unintentionally, I saw the red-clad demon with the umbrella again, standing by the window watching everything. He was such an eyesore. A strange emotion surrounded me, and I didn't know why I felt such hatred for the demon. Perhaps these emotions weren't even my own. After lunch, I went to the bathroom to clean up a bit. Perhaps it was because of the angel, but I felt an incredible change within myself. I had become cold-blooded and extremely sharp. Through the bathroom mirror, I noticed someone secretly watching me. He realized I had seen him and fell to the ground in fright. Could he be the one who pushed me off the school rooftop? I cheerfully washed the food stains off my face. When I looked again, the figure was gone. But it didn't matter. Everyone in the school had bullied me. They were all accomplices. I would settle these scores slowly, one by one. No one would escape. Because I was cleaning myself, I was late to class. The homeroom teacher punished me for being late by making me carry 2 large buckets of water and stand on the playground. I raised my hand and asked, "Teacher, is there a rule in the school regulations about this punishment?" The homeroom teacher seemed taken aback by my defiance. He paused for a few seconds, then angrily declared, "I am the rule. From now on, anyone who is late must be punished by standing." I complied, not because he was the homeroom teacher, but because I found it amusing. As I left, I glanced at the crowd who were gloating over my punishment. From now on, this would be the new rule. "Remember this," I said to everyone. I carried the buckets of water and stood under the scorching sun for over 2 hours. Gradually, people started coming out during their breaks to laugh at me. But I didn't find it funny at all. I liked the sun. I liked the feeling of being under its rays. Suddenly, many fragments of memories that didn't belong to me flashed through my mind: corporal punishment, bullying, abuse, fire, painful memories, chaotic memories. These memories overlapped, and for a moment my head hurt immensely, as if a drill was trying to bore a hole in my skull. It felt like I had eyes on my back, clearly seeing the demon with the umbrella standing behind me, staring intently. Why was he watching me? Were those memories his? Was he trying to harm me? A bucket of cold water was poured over my head, relieving my headache. I heard laughter from the crowd not far away. I looked back, and sure enough, the demon was gone. I laughed too. I knew I was the only one being bullied in this school. Bullying me had become a daily routine, a mandatory course. Anyone could step on me. This time it was cold water. Next time it would be hot water. I had had enough. The main culprit was a rich kid in the class. He laughed brightly and said, "Zhang Chanqian, you've been in the sun for so long. Are you hot? I'm pitying you, cooling you down." After being exposed to the sun for hours and then suddenly drenched with a bucket of ice water, my muscles trembled uncontrollably. Water droplets fell from my eyelashes. "Thank you," I said. "I will definitely repay you." The crowd burst into laughter. Everyone was amused by my words. The next day, the rich kid didn't come to school. The teacher just said he was sick. According to those in the know, he had a party by the pool at his house last night and accidentally fell into the water, resulting in frostbite and hospitalization. How could someone get frostbite from falling into the water on a hot day? Everyone thought it was a bit absurd. After class, curiosity got the better of everyone, and they suggested visiting him in the hospital. I went along too. The hospital room was heated to the max, hotter than a sauna. After a brief exchange of pleasantries, everyone left in a hurry, unable to bear the heat. Only I stayed by his bedside. I quietly watched him, feeling no particular emotion. His entire body was covered in a layer of frost, shivering uncontrollably, clutching a thick quilt. There were warm air fans placed all around him. The rich kid was shivering from the cold, yet struggling to breathe from the heat. He reached out to me, his teeth chattering, trying to speak but unable to say anything. I tucked his hand back under the quilt and adjusted it for him, smiling as I asked, "You look very cold. Do you need my help?" His lips trembled as he shook his head, eyes filled with fear. I reached out and touched his eyes, feeling a deep love for this emotion. The room's temperature kept rising, and with a pop, the thermometer exploded. The air was filled with the smell of something burning. I rolled up my sleeves and lifted my shirt, watching as the burns on my arms, waist, and back disappeared at a visible speed. I reveled in the pleasure that revenge brought me. Hatred, fear, death, these all gave me immense joy. But this joy was fleeting, as if I were the insatiable demon. Only by continuing to find and torment the next target could I achieve temporary satisfaction. As soon as I returned to the classroom, I saw a boy standing on someone else's desk, holding a diary and reading it aloud in a mocking tone. With each sentence he read, the others clapped and laughed. My desk was once again trampled and left askew, with my books scattered all over the floor, covered in scribbles and nonsense. July 16th, I was tripped. Mike helped me up and took me to the infirmary. He was so gentle. July 21st, Mike greeted me again. I was so happy. August 2nd, Mike offered to walk me home. I refused. I live in a slum. He would definitely despise it. August 4th, he actually asked me out. I set my desk upright, propped my face on my hands and sat quietly like the other students, waiting for him to continue. But the boy couldn't utter another word. He stared at the diary, eyes wide open, as if he had seen something forbidden and terrifying. At that moment, a female classmate patted him on the shoulder. The boy went berserk, tearing the diary to shreds and stuffing the pieces into his mouth. Many were frightened, but no one dared to stop him. His actions grew more violent, as if he were possessed. Strangely, the diary pages seemed like glass, cutting his mouth and filling it with blood. After a long while, he finally calmed down, looking at everyone in confusion, seemingly unaware of what had just happened. Blood dripped from his mouth, and the numerous wounds opened and closed, making it look as if he had grown extra mouths. Amid the shock of the crowd, I couldn't stop laughing. The boy who talked too much had literally become a multi-mouthed person. No one noticed my abnormal behavior. I turned around and picked up a piece of the diary that hadn't been eaten. I unfolded it and read aloud. August 6th, I sold my soul to the devil. A flame suddenly ignited in my palm, burning the last piece of the diary to ashes. I stared blankly at my hand, where a black mark remained. A look of confusion crossed my face. I had chosen the smiling, pure white angel. How could it be the devil? Looking up, I saw the red-clad demon again. I chased after him, and he led me to the rooftop where I had fallen. He stood at the edge where I had jumped, beckoning me with a chilling smile. As I looked into his eyes, my head began to ache again. Countless fragmented memories flooded my mind. On this rooftop, there were many people with blurry faces. They pointed at me, closing in step by step. They had forced me to jump. But who were they? The headache was unbearable. No, these weren't my memories. I clutched my head and stumbled away, running home. In the bathroom, I looked at my disheveled self in the mirror. I stared into my own eyes, silently recalling what had happened that day. August 5th, I was humiliated by Mike and his gang. August 5th, I tried to call the police but was beaten in retaliation. August 6th, I fell from the rooftop. Someone pushed me, a familiar figure, but I couldn't see who it was. Another wave of pain and struggle hit me. Regaining my composure, I smirked at the mirror. It no longer mattered who had pushed me on the rooftop. Those who slandered me, those who hurt and trampled on me, those who pretended to care but insulted me, they would all face retribution. None of them would escape. I laughed maniacally, the seed of revenge taking root and growing into a towering tree within me. Due to the severe impact of the self-harm incident, the school was closed for a few days. While at home, I received a text message, "Jane, they forced me to do it that day. You know I had no choice. Can we still be friends?" And memories of the times he had helped me flashed through my mind. But so what? It was all fake, a deliberate setup. I sneered, turned off my phone, and didn't reply. I knew he would come looking for me again. A few days later, school resumed. There was a fight on campus, and many people gathered to watch. I was the only one who didn't stop because I was almost late for class. The homeroom teacher didn't make those who were late stand on the playground, and he wanted to downplay the fight. During class, I raised my hand and said, "Mr. Weldon, what about your rules? Punish those who are late and those who fight. Why aren't you punishing them? Double standards will bring retribution." As soon as I finished speaking, I received resentful and mocking looks from the entire class. The homeroom teacher glared at me furiously and dragged me out of the classroom. "Janin, you will stand here and listen to the class," he said, clearly showing favoritism. But I didn't need to be angry because soon the temperature in the classroom began to rise to an absurd level. Even with the air conditioning on full blast, those who were late felt like they were under a scorching sun. One by one, several students couldn't take it anymore and asked to leave early. One student suddenly collapsed from heat stroke. The homeroom teacher kicked the student, accusing him of faking it. Someone suggested calling 911, but the teacher immediately rejected the idea. The incident of the boy eating the diary had somehow been leaked online, causing a public outcry. The school later claimed it was maliciously edited footage to suppress the uproar. Regardless, the school couldn't afford another collective heat stroke incident, especially since the homeroom teacher didn't believe it. He thought the students were just making trouble for themselves. I sensed what the teacher was thinking. Smiling, I handed him a bucket of water. Without thinking, he poured it over the collapsed student. I craned my neck from the doorway to watch the commotion, feeling an indescribable satisfaction. Oh, the person lying on the ground was the one who had been secretly following me these past few days. She was wearing a pure white dress, and it seemed she was the one who pushed me off the rooftop. She lay on the ground, regaining some consciousness, and stared at me as if she had a lot to say. Class was dismissed early, and many students rushed out, unable to bear the heat. But how could they really escape? They would have to endure the same amount of sun exposure I did when I was late. That was only fair. I returned to my seat. One leg of my desk was cracked, and it wobbled when I wrote. I was about to find a book to prop it up when he, with a bruised face, stood in front of me. "Jane, I'm sorry. I've already avenged you. Please don't be angry anymore, okay?" I closed my eyes, recalling that night in the cinema when those two people tore at me, beat me, and filmed the whole thing, only to throw some money at me in the end. Could such evil deeds be forgiven with just a beating? If it were up to me, I would. Mike interrupted my thoughts. "I really like you. I promise I won't let anyone hurt you again." I stared at him for a long time, suddenly finding it amusing. How could he have the nerve to say he liked me? I held a book in my hand, covered in scribbles and torn as if chewed by a dog. My desk was carved with all sorts of marks, and my drawer was filled with snack crumbs, rotting garbage, and sometimes dead rats and cockroaches. Someone who claimed to like me turned a blind eye to all of this. "You won't let anyone hurt me again? How can you guarantee that?" I asked him. I reached out and touched his face, answering for him. "Your promise is worth a lot. If it happens again, you'll wish you were dead." After school, the cleaning group left, dumping all the dirty work on me. This happened often, and I was used to them spitting sunflower seed shells while I cleaned. I was already happy if they didn't do that. But now I was even happier because I was no longer the old Jane. After finishing, I overheard some conversations in the bathroom. Those people hadn't gone home yet and were gathered around the vanity, talking carelessly. They were planning to trick me into going out again. "Will that bitch fall for it again?" someone asked. I lit a cigarette in the bathroom and loudly suggested, "Why trick her? Just kidnap her. It's not like we haven't done it before. If worst comes to worst, we can do it at school." There was a brief silence, followed by a bucket of cold water being poured in. They banged on the door, demanding I come out. I opened the door and stepped out, but they were stunned because I emerged from a different stall. At that moment, the door to the stall they had poured water into opened, revealing the homeroom teacher, drenched and looking like a demon from hell. He grabbed each of them and dragged them into the stall. Soon, their screams were drowned out by the sound of flushing toilets. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror, admiring how beautiful I was. I noticed that the bald spot on the back of my head was starting to grow hair, and the bruises and injuries on my body were disappearing. I was feeling satisfied when a girl, the one who had poured food over my head, escaped from the teacher's grasp. She was soaked and covered in foul water. She seemed to sense something was wrong and looked at me with a mix of arrogance, caution, and fear. She grabbed a mop from the utility room and struck me on the head with the wooden handle. I didn't dodge or feel any pain. After a heavy thud, blood flowed from her forehead. Everything she did to me was reflected back onto her. I turned to face the mirror, and she did the same. I stretched lazily, and she mimicked my movements. "Help me," she cried, but I covered my mouth with one hand and twisted my other arm in an impossible 180-degree angle. In reality, the arrogant girl's arm moved in sync with mine. It had been a long time since I had stretched my muscles. After a few patient movements, I felt completely refreshed, both physically and mentally. Leaving the bathroom, I returned to the classroom to get my backpack, only to find the room in complete disarray. I sneered and kicked the nearest desk, causing it to topple over. One by one, the desks fell like dominoes. The next day, just after school, my phone rang. It was my birthday. "Would you like to come to my birthday party after school?" The message read. I quickly replied, "Sorry, please don't contact me anymore." Mike immediately called. "Jane, why? Give me a reason. Did you hear something you shouldn't have?" he asked, his breathing heavy on the other end. I interrupted him. "Come to the school rooftop after school. I'll tell you why." After school, I went to the rooftop. The sun was warm, and a gentle breeze played with my hair and skirt. It was just like the day Jane jumped. The weather was perfect. I heard a noise behind me and turned around with a smile, only to see the red-clad woman again. Every time I saw her, I felt inexplicably uneasy, either with headaches or discomfort. But this time, I felt nothing, no emotions at all. I walked slowly towards her, hearing my own voice say, "This scapegoat, I have decided on it. You can't stop me anymore." The red-clad woman's expression remained unchanged, her entire being exuding an eerie aura. She continued to stare into my eyes as she spoke. "Jane, think carefully. Who was it that pushed you that day?" When I was pushed, I instinctively turned to look, but always thought I hadn't seen clearly. I assumed it was the girl in the white dress from my class. But this time, I saw clearly. It was the angel who had possessed my body. Yet I couldn't say anything. My body was completely out of my control. I watched helplessly as my hand reached out, grabbed the red-clad woman's neck, and pressed her against the rooftop railing. Her skin, exposed to the sun, burned like fragile paper, turning to ash. I laughed maniacally. Yes, I pushed her. I finally found a substitute. Mind your own business. All the sealed memories flooded back as if a dam had burst. I realized they were the memories of the demon attached to me. My name was Max, and the woman in red was my best friend, Alice. We both got into this school together. She always topped the exams and won scholarships. Her school life was vibrant and colorful. Everyone liked being friends with her, and the teachers favored her. In contrast, I lived in her shadow, dark and silent, isolated by others, but I never cared. The only person I cared about was Alice. I deliberately erased correct answers during exams and caused conflicts with competitors during scholarship evaluations. I should have had better grades and deserved the school's resources more than she did. Everything she got was because I let her have it. But she betrayed me, making many friends and laughing and playing with them, completely disregarding me. She even secretly dated the school's most popular boy, knowing full well that he was liked by the school's bully girls. She just wanted to prove she was more popular. What angered me the most was that she got pregnant. She touched her belly with a gentle expression and said she wanted to drop out. I felt like my world was collapsing. That boy had secured a spot to study abroad next year. How could he possibly take responsibility for her or truly love her? I couldn't allow them to be together. I spent my days thinking about how to persuade her. But a girl at my desk noticed something was wrong. That day, Alice said her stomach hurt. I bought painkillers and was on my way to the dormitory when I suddenly saw her fall from a height, landing right in front of me. I looked up and saw those people on the rooftop, laughing and looking down at me. Leading them was the bully girl who liked the popular boy. They were all murderers, the ones who killed Alice. Afterward, I reported it to the police, but with only my testimony and no evidence, they remained free. Not only did they remain free, but one day they also ganged up on me, dragging me to the abandoned school building next door. Several of them humiliated me, beating and insulting me, filming indecent videos, and calling me and Alice dead lesbians. It wasn't true. She and I were just very good friends. I tried to resist, but it only brought more severe beatings. Gradually, they not only humiliated me in secret, but also bullied me publicly, making bystanders burn me with cigarette butts and slap me. No one dared to resist or even tried. I became the target of everyone's bullying and abuse. The bystanders' initial guilt gradually turned into numbness and then into perpetrators themselves. Later, the boy Alice liked showed an indecent video of me to everyone for fun. I couldn't take it anymore and lunged at him, trying to bite his neck, but I failed to sever his artery. That time, they went crazy, dragging me into the school's abandoned warehouse. They laughed maniacally, beating and insulting me, pouring gasoline over me. No matter how much I screamed and cried, the fire consumed me. Hatred, such deep hatred. I turned into a vengeful ghost, determined to make all those bullies suffer a terrible fate. It was a truly tragic memory. These were the memories of the demon attached to me. She wasn't an angel. It was she who pushed me off the rooftop, transforming into a vengeful ghost to help me seek revenge, not just to help me, but to find a scapegoat for herself. Once my revenge was complete and my resentment dissipated, she could fully take over my body. I shouldn't have ended up like this. At that moment, The rooftop door creaked open. He said nothing, as if possessed by something, and grabbed my hair, dragging me out. As I was dragged along, I saw many accomplices, many onlookers, and many numb, pale faces following behind. Some of them were indeed my real-life classmates, but many were people I didn't recognize. They wore old-fashioned school uniforms and appeared as semi-transparent black shadows. I knew they were the evil souls Max had dragged to hell. In my memories, she returned for revenge, burning the entire school to the ground. He dragged me to the abandoned school building next door, opened a broken door, and threw me in heavily. I had heard about this abandoned school building before. It was said that a terrible fire had occurred here 20 years ago. Construction crews had tried to renovate it several times, but were mysteriously hindered. It turned out that the instigator of the fire 20 years ago was this very demon. His vengeful spirit lingered, punishing bullies in the school over and over again. I had initially felt grateful to him, but I never expected that he was the one who caused me to fall and wanted me to be his scapegoat. I was thrown to the ground, hearing laughter all around me. As I was dragged along, my skirt tore in many places, and my knees, elbows, and body were covered in scrapes. Someone yanked my hair, forcing me to look up, and slapped me several times. Someone immediately brought a camera and ordered me to undress. When I didn't move, they kicked me. Memories and reality overlapped again. They tore my clothes and poured gasoline on me. Such deep hatred filled my heart. The fire burned me. For the second time, I experienced the agony of being consumed by flames. I rolled on the ground, screaming in the empty warehouse. But then something unexpected happened. A burning figure gradually separated from my body. It was the white-clad demon who had pushed me off the rooftop. His entire body was engulfed in flames, his skin scarred and grotesque from the burns. At that moment, I suddenly lost all strength. Mike and the others seemed to snap out of a trance, and seeing this scene, several of them collapsed in fear. They tried to flee, but there was nowhere to go. The entire building was on fire, the door handles glowing red hot, and outside the windows was a sea of eerie green flames. The living, the dead, and the vengeful spirits all gathered in the warehouse, making it crowded. Max's body gradually merged with mine again. No matter how much I resisted, it was futile. I could only watch as he took control of my body once more. I could feel Max's rage and heard his voice coming from my mouth. "Don't think you can escape. None of you can escape." At that moment, Alice appeared in my vision. She looked into my eyes and said, "Max, let it go. Whether they are good or bad, you've killed enough people. Let them go, and let yourself go too." I heard a voice from my chest. "Oh, you didn't suffer bullying when you died. Don't preach kindness to others without experiencing their pain. I only kill the bad ones, the murderers. How do you know Jane doesn't want revenge?" Alice was silent for a moment before suggesting, "How about we play a game? The loser accepts the punishment. How about it? The main thing is, this game is fair to everyone. Even a group of vengeful spirits must follow the rules." The rules were simple. Everyone would sit in a circle, each with a card. The spinner would point to a word, and the corresponding word would appear on someone's card. The spinner would turn 7 times, and everyone had one chance to defend themselves. If their reason was justified, they wouldn't be punished. After 7 rounds, those with fewer than 4 words on their cards would win. It was that simple. Everyone present had to participate, so Alice willingly separated from my body. I finally felt my own heartbeat and my inner fear and anxiety, emotions that had been absent while I was possessed. The game began. The first spin landed on the word apocalypse. Several people had this word on their cards. The atmosphere was tense, and no one dared to speak at first. Slowly, people began to stand up and explain, their reasons mostly the same. They were afraid of getting burned and didn't dare to stand out. Each round came with corresponding punishments, depending on what they had done. Those who were merely spectators or lied with ill intentions were suddenly consumed by black flames. In an instant, 2/3 of the people were gone. Many were already panicking because the words on the spinner would only get stricter. The second round began, and the spinner landed on the word arrogance. Many people's cards displayed phrases like despise the lower classes and think they don't deserve to attend the same school. Those with these words on their cards immediately began to cry, repent, and make excuses. This was relatively easy to explain away, as they all attributed it to their upbringing and education. Although a few people disappeared in this round, it was much better compared to the first round. The third round landed on the word exploitation. Many people couldn't justify this and were directly consumed by flames. Beiling's card also displayed this word. He didn't explain, but showed his scars, and the game automatically judged him as ignoring the principle of a life for a life. The spinner turned for the fourth time, but this time it spun for a long while without stopping. Taking advantage of this gap, Alice asked, "Max, I just want to know, did you have anything to do with my death?" I then noticed that the once crowded warehouse was now only occupied by me, Max, and Alice, one human and two ghosts. The spinner hadn't even turned 7 times, yet all the bullies and classmates had disappeared. I felt an inexplicable fear. What was I now? Was I human or ghost? Would I be taken over by Max after the game ended, my soul becoming his scapegoat, forever trapped in this school? Alice's question went unanswered by Max, so I answered for her. I heard my trembling voice say, "The rules and punishments of this game are clearly from their world. I've almost figured out the game's pattern. If I want to survive, I must make this demon disappear." My mind raced, trying to think of a word that could do it. Max stepped forward to strangle me, but the game stopped her. I knew I wasn't a bad person, but I wasn't a saint either. I wouldn't willingly become someone else's scapegoat. Max had helped me get revenge, but she was also the one who pushed me off the rooftop. I didn't want to become her scapegoat. I clung to Alice's cold hands like a lifeline, looking into her eyes with utmost sincerity and speaking quickly and excitedly. "I've seen Max's memories. She was jealous that you made many friends and dated the popular boy. She resented you for neglecting her and wanted to prove that the popular boy was a bad man. So she revealed your pregnancy to her desk mate, knowing she was a gossip. She used her to spread the news about you and the popular boy throughout the school. On the day you died, she gave you leftover food, and while she went to buy medicine, she had the bully girl come to trouble you. She didn't kill just for you. She did it because she was bullied and hated you. She never truly considered you a good friend. She just wanted to monopolize you and didn't want you to have your own circle of friends." Alice listened intently, her expression growing sadder with each word. Despite this, I had to keep talking, revealing all the sins before the spinner stopped. Finally, the spinner came to a halt, and the pointer split into 3, pointing to jealousy, resentment, and manipulation. I had guessed them all correctly. Alice's card displayed all these words: jealousy, resentment, and manipulation. I breathed a sigh of relief, knowing I had won this battle. If the demon had even a shred of good intention, it wouldn't have been so easy for me to guess correctly. Earlier on the rooftop, I did see her memories, but I didn't believe they were all of her memories. If she hadn't harbored inappropriate feelings for Alice, there wouldn't have been such extreme resentment, and Alice wouldn't have died. Everything I said was true, and with the previous murders, Max's card now had a total of 4 words. I watched as a black death character gradually appeared on her forehead. Even demons can die, can be counter-killed. I was sweating with excitement. I laughed, feeling relieved because I would no longer be possessed or become her scapegoat. Max didn't offer any defense. Black flames engulfed her body again. This time, she would disappear forever, right? Before vanishing, she looked at Alice with tearful eyes but disappeared with a smile. At the time, I didn't notice anything wrong and even thanked Alice. If it weren't for her appearing repeatedly to remind me during my vengeful haze, I might have been bewitched by this demon and become her scapegoat. After a long while, Alice came back to her senses. She smiled, but her eyes turned icy cold, sending a chill down my spine. The ghostly green flames in the school building were still burning, even more vigorously. I instinctively took a few steps back, hearing that cold voice. "I should be thanking you. Now no one will compete with me." Another day began, the cycle repeating. The school was bustling with life again, as if nothing had happened the night before. But I knew things had changed. Everyone had changed. With a dull thud, someone fell from the building, breaking their spine and turning into a heap of broken flesh. But when the school bell rang, they hurriedly got up, their broken spine unable to support them, forcing them to walk in a twisted manner into the classroom. The school rules stated that no one could be late or they would be punished. The campus was filled with familiar faces, people with twisted words carved into their faces, people limping with broken legs, people wrapped in blankets and carrying heaters to school, and people with multiple mouths on their faces, constantly talking. When the noise became unbearable, others would sew the extra mouths shut with needles and thread. They were all possessed, their bullying and abuse backfiring on them. Those who were unrepentant and judged guilty would forever wander in this infernal hell. I sat under an umbrella on the top floor of the abandoned school building, looking down at everything happening on campus. I couldn't understand why I still ended up as a scapegoat. You underestimated Max's feelings for Alice. On the day you fell, both ghosts were behind you, a voice suddenly said. I turned around and saw a familiar face. The white dress fluttered in the wind. It was a ghost. Her face became more familiar. It was a high school classmate who had long since passed away. When she handed me an admission letter, I finally realized the truth. Being made a scapegoat was my punishment. No school bully could escape. In high school, I had once led a cyberbullying campaign over a guaranteed admission spot, even posting this classmate's home address online. I never thought she would take her own life because of it. So all of this was my just desserts. No ghost is as terrifying as the evil within one's own heart. Thank you for listening.